All righty. So, welcome again to the way we do it. In each of our episodes, I'll never not have things to talk about. And as you see today, the topic for today is Ice Cube and Aries Spears. And if you look at my subject line, and you see a lot of people that talk about the subject, Ice Cube versus, Aries Spears. Well, you notice I don't use verses in this one. No BS. It says Ice Cube and Aries Spears because this is truly not a competition at all. And I want to just kind of go back and from my subject line as well. What did I say? Ice Cube, founder of the Big Three, rapper, writer, producer, actor, and comedian actor Aries Spears. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about today. And again, I would just advise comics who who want to talk about this. Be careful, right? Because we don't want to create some habits that are just not good for Black culture in general. We do way too much attacking. When I was talking to you last time about my last episode, it's like, Black people are competitive people, but we got to understand, where our competition might go awry. And I wanted to start off by saying, and you can kind of see from my thumbnail, is No Vaseline remix, right? And I just say that as I pose that as a question. Me personally, in the rap game, there was only two, and you can debate which one was better. But Cube went in with hit him up. With No Vaseline, and Pac would hit him up. And I just think No Vaseline was just hard. I was like, yo, that was just crazy. And so, and you guys can go and listen to what Aries Spears was saying and what his justification why he don't like no Ice Cube and all that. But you're going to hear from me. I'm just going to put out the facts of an extremely talented Black man uh, in multiple areas, and you decide for yourself, right? I first got introduced to Ice Cube a little bit on the music. I was born in Philly, grew up on the East Coast. So just culturally, that's just how you move. You just kind of move in your regions. As I matured, I started to expand my thoughts about music. And I really dug into Ice Cube when he started to act. And for me was, when he did I forgot what was his character's name in uh he's done so many things, but his John Singleton movie was Boys in Hood. I mean, that's just, and I'm aging myself, but that character made me want to kind of understand how Black people moved on the West Coast. Just what that culture was like, and movies does that for me. But I'm gonna get back to that a little bit more. But and I'm proud of Ice Cube because from what I saw about what when Aries put out what he did, and I'm gonna try to get into the minds of talent, because a lot of times they are begging or screaming for something, but they don't know how to do it because a lot of them are just strictly talented. That's just not the part of the brain that operates. And people like myself, who's a producer, we understand personalities and how to put people in good positions and what sometimes behavior is saying, other than them yelling at someone, because when you're on a set and someone's yelling at another talent, they could have been having a bad day. They could be frustrated from something else. And so there's a lot more of the psychology that producers have to understand about talent because, what you hired them for is probably is at this top of the game. But some of those other social skills, they vent different ways, and talent will blow up on you. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. I don't know. Talented people, sometimes it's like, ooh, it gets a little tricky with some other things. So as a producer, you got to understand that. You got to understand who you hire, and when you see certain kind of behaviors, what you can do to see that. So from afar, looking out, I'm looking at this from a talent situation. So, but before that, Aries, you don't want no smoke, and Q's not gonna put the energy in putting a track together for you. But if he did, man, you don't want that heat, right? You just don't want that heat. I mean, No Vaseline was crazy. So I'm gonna do this kind of in a reverse kind of a order, right? Because I'm gonna save Ice Cube for last, because as you can see from his portfolio of work, I want to really be able to give him his props in all of those areas. And one person's portfolio is smaller than the other one. So I'm going to start with the smaller one. And again, I'm going to preface this one based on, this isn't a versus, right? This isn't you're not putting these two people in the ring because one could kill the other one, right? This isn't a versus. This is just an and. This is Ice Cube and Aries Spears, and there's some issue that's sitting out there. So for those of you who didn't see it, and the part that I caught, and I always like to commend when people are just at that level, and you could tell Ice Cube was a businessman, plus he's still talent, plus he knows the production game, and he understands his brand. Remember, he's a founder of the big three. So he's got a brand out there that wants to attract advertisers to his events, and advertisers don't like to get connected to a lot of messy stuff, right? Because if you're selling soda, you don't want to be associated with something that might go crazy, because then people are going to associate your product with the crazy, right? So as businessmen, owning things, and especially in the brand world, you got to understand that if your younger days or before you matured into that kind of business structure, you might have went at some folks, but you can't do that anymore. When we're young, we're in our 20s, 30s, testosterone's kicking in, and it's kind of hard. That's why maturity is what it is. I mean, that's why these gray hairs come in when you're older, not when you're younger, right? So I want to just preface it with that before I get in. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit. Remember, I'm looking at it from what happened and what can we move with this, and what can we reinforce, and give suggestions. I mean, a lot of people are going to go at Aries Spears, but attacking him is not going to change his behavior, right? So attacking only does, just like anyone else, attacking only either people, they dig in deeper, or now that you're giving them that kind of energy, that in their minds, then that's exactly what they did it for, right? So let me just go after this top dog in the game, and I'm gonna say something reckless, and that's going to get the internet talking about me, and all these personalities talking about me. So we are rewarding bad behavior, right? And there's another way to get yourselves out there, especially on the talent side. A lot of talent, just in general now, I'm talking talent in general, get frustrated with their careers and where it's going or not going. And sometimes that creates bitterness. And just depending on how you were raised or who your mentors were, you might use kind of like street behavior that's negative. Because the other thing about street behavior, that it's if any of us who lived in any kind of city, some of those rules on the street saves your life, right? So it can't be that bad, right? So I know, just a quick little story. When I was back hanging out back from California back into Philly, and I was in Philly. I grew up in Yaden, but I was in West Philly, and I was talking to some of my friends in Philly, and I'm on the sidewalk, and my back is to the street, And my boys is the other way, right? Their back is to the walls. So yeah, I'm talking, da 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 da. They're like, man, you've been in Cali just a little too long. And I'm thinking, like, well, what's that about? Why you say I've been in Cali too long? He's like, your back is to the street, man. You know you can't be doing that kind of stuff. And it hit me. It's much as, and that's why you always want to kind of stay with a diverse group of people, and you always want to kind of move because there's some survival techniques that will help you anywhere. And one of them is you put your back to if you're on the street, the stores are behind you so that if you're talking to people, you can see what's happening because you just never know. I mean, it doesn't have to be a drive-by, but a car could just get out of control and start spinning, or a motorcycle can slide, and and you got your back toward it, and boom, things can happen, right? So that's just one of those things of where things learned on the street can continue to help you, and so you learn from everything. But so let me talk about what I think Aries Spears is probably experiencing, and I'm kind of give you a somewhat of a backstory with him. Now, he's coming out of East Coast, coming out of New York. He's coming out of a lot of times people would say is the mecca of comedy in that sense, the New York comedy scene. He battling through that. To me, he made his transition to television when he was doing Mad TV, and which is I don't know if you might be able to still see it on YouTube, but Mad TV was a sketch show based off of Mad TV, the comic book, and so he started. That's where I saw him, and he was good in that world. That world came crashing down. The Mad TV, that whole thing, for whatever reasons, a lot of people in that Mad TV scenario. For those of you who did never even seen a Mad TV, it's sort of like a in living color, right? I think it went through, I think, like 2009, so it had a nice little run. Jordan Spears was on Mad TV. There's a couple other people on Mad TV. It was out when I was doing my sketch comedy show, and when I look at Aries, I look at him like if I was to select one of the comedians for my own show. So he had that kind of skill set, and he does great impersonations. This is Aries Spears. He does great impersonations, right? It's just and what I would suggest is for Aries to go back to defining those again and doing more of those. And to me, because I think you were very good in the sketch world, is to see if you can develop a sketch world of your own. Taking that Mad TV and bringing something back. Because, and the reason why I'm saying that is, a lot of times what you're good at, if it's not out there in the marketplace, you get frustrated because you're kind of locked in, and so then you got to get into something else to stay relevant. And unfortunately, with social media, one of the big ways of staying relevant is talking about other people, because that triggers all the the podcast people and that kind of thing. So that would be my suggestion, because you're not gonna this conversation you had about Cube. You're not. There's no winning of that one because it's not even a starter. So that's why I'm not even approaching that when I'm talking about giving advice, because we got to figure out how to get everybody moving and create platforms. That's what producers do. We try to create platforms for certain kind of talent to do their thing. I talked to you in shows before about me wanting to bring back my sketch comedy show because I wanted to have a gateway format for stand-up comedians to get into the television world and then proceed into other television or other films. So I'm kind of like built for that, and I have just a bias for stand-up comedians, and I know, so a lot of times when they're going wrong, I know what those signals are, and a lot of times it's frustration because incredibly talented people, but sometimes, without management or the right kind of mentors around them, that energy that if it's corralled and done properly, will make you a winner. But if it's unchecked and is not developed, it can take you down a path that you might not be able to get out of. So for me, so I wanted to use this occasion about Ice Cube, because it's incredible, the body of work that he's had. It's just to remind when we start to go at, and again, everybody can have an opinion about if they like someone or they don't like someone. But those of us that are in the industry, especially talent or people in front of these cameras, we have to know that we have a lot of power on our personal opinion about things, because people entrust us to kind of be the experts. And then if we say something that's crappy, then a lot of people are going to take that and run with that. So we have to understand the power of our critique. And a lot of times I won't critique in a public forum someone, my personal opinion about something, because it's a personal bias. If I don't like certain kind of genres of films or television, it's not that the other ones are bad. I don't particularly like this one. But if I say that too loud, I don't want to influence people to do it just because I just don't do it. And so I'm very tactful when I talk about that, or just why I particularly care for a certain thing. I'm sort of like Jordan Peele in that sense. When I made the decision to do films, I particularly like horror. I don't know what it is about comedy and horror, but I made that same kind of pivot. It's like from the comedy I was doing, show running on the Comic View, doing my own sketch comedy show. And then I'm like, okay, I want to do films of all the genres of films, romantic comedies, dramas, all that. It was horror that drove me. So I'm not knocking any other kind of genre, but that's the lane that I like. And I think as artists, when you do a lane that you're into, you're going to do it well, right? And for me personally, I don't know about Jordan Peele, I can't speak for him, but as a child, I used to watch horror movies with my sister, and so it's just like a full circle. The things that I liked is now, if I can do them as an adult, then that's what I want to be able to do. So let's talk about Cube, and let's just break it down into some the things that he has done. Now, recently he has that big three, which is growing, and he's giving. Now this is Ice Cube, the business person, right? So he has identified a talent group that's out there that are not still playing in the NBA, but still got skills, and he created a platform for them. And now the NBA has got to adjust to, because when I was watching it, I could see how they were trying to, they saw him as competition, try to crush him, but he stayed in it. And I think that's just from his other skills of being a music artist. You just can't quit. Being an actor, you just can't quit. Writing, I mean, when he wrote Friday, when you write, it's a long period of time of doing something that you're getting no rewards for. You can't quit on that either. So these are the kinds of things that he has to think about when he's out there in the marketplace and when he's on these radio shows. So the radio show I caught him with about Aries Spears and his opinion about Aries' opinion about Ice Cube's talent. The host, and you could tell from how Ice Cube was, he was there for something else. He's probably promoting his big three, or if he's doing a movie, whatever. But he was at the radio station promoting something. And so they asked him about that. And he said, I didn't know what they were talking about. And then, they said that he was critiquing them. And then, remember, you don't have a thought of it before. And so Ice Cube, made the comments that he made. I mean, he's a grown man. And so, his reaction was the reaction a lot of us would have. You put this whole body work, and then someone out of left field, in my opinion, says some nonsense, you're going to react, right? I mean, he's got a grown son, is doing very well in the acting game. So he's still married to his wife. I believe it's his high school sweetheart. So, Cube is and you could tell he didn't grow up, with a silver spoon in his mouth. And all the body work that he did. And I knew he had kind of business in him when they did the NWA story. And he was like, remember, I'm a producer, so I know the business side of the game. And he was like, no, let a lawyer see that contract. I was like, he's going to be able to move far because he's one of those rare people who not only has talent, but he has business sense. And that business sense, I didn't grow up with him, but I could just tell he has a street business sense and he has the corporate business sense now, right? So he knows how to make that transition where a lot of people haven't done. So they were in the radio station, and they asked us, hey, what do you think about Aries Spears, talking that trash? And then Cube said what he said, but I haven't seen him continue to escalate that, because that was sort of like, just kind of came out of nowhere, radio station with the host and the co-host, you're talking, and you're kind of in that, to me, in that promotional vibe. And even it's a comfortable seat for him as an artist, because he's been in that kind of a seat on these radio stations around the country. So, he's got that artist kind of vibe going. And, he wants to be honest with the audience, the conversations that he's having. That's why I wanted to kind of set up what environment he was in. He was in an environment of them asking him questions and him being truthful. He wasn't sitting there lying about stuff. And so when this other real statement came, he gave a real answer to it. So I applaud that, because, you just can't be like, oh, because it'll be unreal for you not to react the way you did for that. And then I also applaud Ice Cube because he's not elevating it after this, because again, from the title of this show, Ice Cube, founder of Big Three, he's a rapper, he's a writer, he's a producer and an actor. And then there's Aries Spears, a comedian and an actor, right? Two different trajectories, two different places, even to the degree, I had a couple of these episodes when I was versing people, this person versus, but this isn't even close, right? This is just whole different. And if you're young to the game, I just wanted to call off a couple of these, and I'm just going to talk about Ice Cube now on his movie side of the game. And I'm seeing like over 15, 20 movies just off the top of my head. And I'm just looking through a couple of these ride-alongs. I think there's a couple of those. First Sunday, the Friday episodes, Three Kings. What is this one? A couple of the barbershops. And and one of the ones I really enjoy, because it felt a little bit away from his perception, when he did one called The Long Shots. You gotta see that one. That's a cool little movie. And then I really, just me, I'm a horror dude. So when he did Anaconda with J-Lo, you gotta watch that, right? And so these to me are him getting out. Three Kings, he's kind of doing the military thing in the desert. So he's even understanding how to get his brand outside of just kind of urban stuff. That's where he started, and he's expanding that brand out. And then the one that really got me is when he did one called Dangerous Ground. And Dangerous Ground was in South Africa. So and the other one he did Ghost of Mars. So now he's on this other planet. So just that, I just wanted to kind of share. A lot of us, in this world, they'll tend to keep us kind of boxed into, like urban dramas and urban stuff. You're right. And so to me, to expand out of that to have a whole list, and then for someone to come back at you and say you're not a good this and that, I'm like, that's just not even a fair conversation to have. And to me, and the reason why I'm expending a little bit more time on this with you guys and just getting into a little bit more detail is, to me, that means those statements that Aries was doing was about something else, right? Because you're just going up against someone who's just got just too much in a portfolio. And that's why, for you guys who are, you're streaming, you might want to check out some things that are in the body of Ice Cube movies. And I'm just highlighting a couple of them that I think really kind of stretched him in different kind of environments, especially that Ghost of Mars, that Anaconda, and Dangerous Grounds. And the Dangerous Grounds number one for me because he's in Africa doing something. We all talked about Wakanda, and Wakanda's great, right? I'm not taking anything away from Wakanda, but you have an LA at the time, an LA rapper who's doing a movie set in South Africa, and we have to acknowledge that. I mean, that's we've talked about some actors coming into America and kind of taking American positions. Denzel did a movie in South Africa. He played a South African freedom fighter, and Ice Cube is played in South Africa. I think that just by itself, that body of work by itself is extremely powerful. We all know what he's done in the rap game. And even if you don't even like West Coast music in general, you gotta respect it, right? It's hard for me to just not, even from the East Coast, because a lot of West Coast stuff has R&B backstories to it, so you might not like a particular artist, but the body of work that they put out here, nah, it's just not a part of that conversation. And that's why I say what I say when talking about Ice Cube. And then because of those Fridays, Ice Cube, I mean, his Are We There Yet? Come on now. I mean, there's way too many of them. He picks the right stuff, and to me, I think he gets undervalued for the ones that are kind of outside the box, and that's why I went and grabbed those three that I want you guys to go see: Anaconda with J-Lo, Dangerous Grounds, which was in South Africa, and Ghost of Mars, which is sci-fi. Because I want to encourage us to continue to push those kind of genres to be included, so that our stuff is just as diverse as anyone else's, and the characters that we have. I'm looking for, I mean, I grew up on Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek, and I'm looking for that. I mean, it was funny. Cedric Entertainment, he did a joke, that joke that him and Kat got some conversations about, but he's going to drive his car, he's like, white folks going to the moon, we going to the moon. And what I love about humor is there's truth in that, but what my challenge is now to fans, because without the consumers, without the fans going out there and supporting these things, they're not going to do it. You know what I mean? So when Wakanda happened, we got excited. We reconnected, because we're having some issues in general about our relationship with Africa. I'm not talking about the people and then in certain places of Africa, they're brainwashed about what they've been told about us. But our existence here in America, which we've been here for, and I'm talking specifically about Black people or African Americans, the 400 years that we're here establishes a culture, right? So there's a Black culture that's indigenous to this place because we've been here long enough. but that doesn't minimize that we have a connection to Africa. And matter of fact, I mean, when all said and done, we all Homo sapiens humans are from Africa, but we have that kind of connection. Now, here's my little controversial thing about Africa that, that I'm gonna throw out there and maybe get you guys to be like, whoa. Okay, so there's this whole thing about and a lot of blacks or African Americans here have made that kind of transition back to Africa, but a lot of those West African countries are charging African Americans or Black Americans to go back home, right? That whole home journey. Here's my statement: it's like we got forced out, and my small understanding of history and just how tribes move. If you're in a dominant tribe, and there's a tribe that's not dominant, you're going to send the non-dominant tribe. You're going to send them into slavery. You're not going to send your own tribe into slavery. So let's just say the apples and there's the oranges. The apples are the dominant tribe, and then you got the oranges, right? Both fruit, so they both have grounds there. The apples get rid of a lot of the oranges, and those oranges get sent away. That to me is African Americans or Black people in America. So I don't believe, and there's ways you could do it. I mean, you could take a DNA test. I mean, I took mine. It shows me what's going on. And if I have any kind of blood that matches any kind of tribes back in West Africa or wherever, but for me, it's pretty much in West Africa. I'm gonna find that results in another episode. I'll pull it up with whatever subject matter we're talking about. But with whatever that tribe was is, and if there's multiple tribes and those tribes are in different states or countries as we know them now, they drew the lines, then I should automatically have dual citizenship in all of those. If I'm serious, if African nations are serious about what they understood to happen to us, because they know we came from there now, and they know the Europeans just can't come marching into those places and it just, dominated. It's a sore wound. The kingdoms had to approve the getting rid of us, right? My whole thing for that in the back, if you know that we were there and we might have been in a part of that a tribe that was conquered, now they have us, and that tribe gave them to the Europeans, maybe not thinking that they would do what they were doing with them, or that whole thing about when you're trading warriors, you know, either way, then to me it's like we shouldn't have to pay. So if I have Ghanaian DNA, and I shouldn't have to pay a fee to go back to Ghana because I was there anyway. So that fee is that 400 years. For whatever reason, I got captured. My ancestors got taken, and now that's just like me coming back. Because remember, when I come back, I'm going to be spending money. I'm gonna buy a house. I'm gonna buy stuff. But to me, and then automatic citizenship that I automatically do. And if I can prove that I have 3 pieces, then those 3 countries automatically citizenship plus my U.S. citizenship. Now, to me, that's okay, right? Because to me, you're going to do much more on creating that bridge, because I know I'm not originally from Canada. Now, the European blood that I have in me, we know how I got that, right? So can we extend out? I think I have, I don't know, about a quarter of that in there, spliced up in a couple countries, but I know how that works. Now we can move on that too. That's not as important to me because I'm like 88%, I think, or 80% from the continent of Africa. So that's enough for me to know that how I got that other percentage in me. we all know that, and I don't want to depress you guys with that right now because we're talking about Ice Cube and Aries Spears. But I would just like to share stuff that as we think, because in my little producer mind kind of goes off. So we could talk about that. You guys can hit me up in the comment section or on my site at TWWDI TV, the way we do it TV. Send me a message and I read them all, and I'll get back to you, and I'll add that as a subject matter to a future one. So let's get back to what we should do and how we should handle this in the future. And for those of you who are out there talent that you're a little frustrated and you think the technique is to go after a big fish without any kind of validity to it, right? If you start to attain something and then you got some opinions, but be wise about when you're speaking of other people and what's the motivation of it. And if you're like, well, yes, I can have an opinion, but we all know once we get in front of the TV screen or film, once we're in media, once media knows we exist, there is a responsibility for our opinions at that point. We're just not a regular person anymore, because people look at people that are on screen and they give them a little bit extra, right? They'll tend to listen to them. The reason why you have fans, the reason why you have followers in a social media game is followers. They're following you. So by definition, subconsciously, you are leading them. And you can lead them right or you can lead them wrong, right? And sometimes you just need not, and sometimes this can happen too. You're being interviewed and a slick host throws something out there and catches you wrong, and you start to make a comment. And it now is out there. But from what I understand, if that can't be the case in this case, because Aries didn't come back and say, you know what, I was just, that was my own personal opinion, but that's really hard with someone like Ice Cube, because he's just too, just to say, I mean, he's just got too much music out there. He's just got too much acting out there. He's gaming it in the film game, and his stuff is so diverse. You know what I mean? I can see if he was like a one-trick pony, and then you're like, oh, it just, and then the thing that you do good, Aries, is your person. You did your impersonation of him, and you do those well. So my suggestion is, and I've seen you do it before, but you did it in the light of the impersonations weren't to bring people down, but the impersonations was to, because you're a comic, is to get people to laugh, but then show the skill of your impersonation, as opposed to using a personal opinion about someone and then to answer the question with the impersonation, as opposed to Ice Cube has a unique language, a unique chatter, and we as viewers, we love when we can see someone else recreate them. I mean, comedian Godfrey's Steve Harvey thing, man, and you can see it's not in malice. I mean, when Godfrey impersonates Steve Harvey, you're cracking up, but you're not cracking up where you're cracking up and laughing at Steve Harvey. You know what I'm saying? You're cracking up because it sounds like him. So it's just not a negative scenario. So you got something good there, and a lot of people can't do impersonations. And I think if the same way you could do Cube, I know you got a treasure chest of those, and you could probably do more, because we're in a different time frame now. And then take your comedic talent and focus on that. I know you've done sketches in Mad TV before, So you know how to work with a troupe, and maybe take that energy, because if done differently, who knows? I mean, Ice Cube's a producer. Ice Cube could have done a sketch comedy show with Aries Spears. Not gonna do it now. I mean, hey, it is what it is. Like, hey, you can't come at me wrong. And the reason why I say that, and that's why I say we all get a little frustrated. And there's some people, there's some comics in LA whose career hasn't done what they thought it was going to do, because you can't talk about everybody in the town, and then they're gonna turn around and give you deals. It just doesn't work that way. And I understand, because I was at BT for 12 years, and I've watched BT since I've left. But so you don't hear me saying too much about my opinion. Every once in a while I'll tell you something that um, establishes that I was there, and some of the things that I'm not. My ego is intact enough to say what Bob Johnson presented me was an opportunity that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else, right? I mean, I was in my 30s, and I was a corporate budget director of a media company. I don't even think there's any Black budget directors out there, right? And then was able to transition to the entertainment side of the game. And luckily for me, it was in the comedy side. And then I left with my own sketch comedy show, and was able to do it the 2 years before Viacom, got in there and did, and brought their people, and that just changed the dance, right? So, and there's a lot of other stuff that was sitting inside of that, but I don't need to expound on that. And so I always look at these things as teachable lessons, right? How we can use this, and now I'm speaking specifically to the younger generation, because we put a lot of pressure on them to. And when I say younger generation, I'm not talking about like high school. I'm talking about 40 and under. I'm calling all of y'all the younger generation, right? Because y'all were raised a little different than I was raised. And so, and a lot of the tools and a lot of the things that we were supposed to train you on, we never did. And so there's a lost skill set of things that you have to do. And a lot of it, you just been having to fight through it on your own. Right. And so now we've got to kind of recreate that. So when I hit a lot of these subjects, I try to do it in a way that, you got to, do the right and the wrong, and be honest about like what you're saying. But I always kind of like to give you a lot of backstory before I say, and the little subtle things that I do that lets I've made a decision on something. So as simple as, if you're just tuning in, that title, most of your clickbait that you're going to get out there, it's going to be Ice Cube versus Aries Spears and blah, 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 rah, 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 rah. And it's not. And so that's just to get viewers to come check you out. Right. I like viewers, but because I'm a producer, I look at things a little differently. And so I want to kind of give you, and we all need to do a little more research. I've taught at a design school out here in LA for about 26 years. So I have kind of an academia producing kind of a mindset, but my producing is from the comedy side. So I like the crazy, but I bring some tools to the crazy. And because I'm not talent myself, then I know I need to make sure we put talent in positions for them to win. My boss and my mentor always said that: put your talent in win-win situations. Know what they're good at and know what they're not good at, and create tools around what they're not good at. So for example, extremely talented person, but they're not good at reading scripts. So don't put them in a scenario where they had to read a lot of scripts. So a lot of times you let them go off script, because you can't train them at that point to start reading scripts, because what typically happens is then that other talent that they have gets locked into the fear, because then people think they're stupid. And see, now you got your talent totally off. as opposed to, okay, if I have someone who's not good at being on script and they need to jump off, I hire another talent that's very good on script. So like kind of one's leading the other in structure, right? So one, you kind of let them do their thing because they're extremely talented, but they're just not good. They're not good at script reading. That's just not their thing. So you're like, well, just don't use them. Well, yeah, you could do that, but what if they're extremely talented? And now that you know something they're not good at, and you know something they're good at, and now I'm talking to you as a producer, my job is to minimize their weaknesses, maximize what they do, right? You might have a talent that is great, but as soon as they drink something, ooh, right? It's like the fire water, right? So guess what? You don't put liquor in front of them. You're like, no, you're drinking apple juice. Now later on, after we're all done, I'll buy you a drink. And see, I'll make that personal. And they know. And it's like, you know what, Tony? You when you drink, you start cussing and you start, yeah, man, Dre, yeah, I know, yeah, you right, right? That's that trust level. But then I'll say, you know what, after we're done, we can go to bar together, man. And I'm not gonna let you drive, but you can have a couple of them drinks, and then we'll put you in and back in my day, it was like put you in a taxi. Now it's like put you in an Uber, take your ass home, give you a couple of aspirin because you know you're gonna have a hangover, and do your thing. But again, these are techniques of knowing what you're good at and what you're done, and that's our responsibility. So also, I ask fans when you start to jump to these sites about these kind of situations like this, you know, um, come in with the opinion, okay, well, where do we go from here? Because that's my big thing. I'll say, okay, we got two named people, Ice Cube, Aries Spears. We know what's on the line for Ice Cube. We want to support the things that he's doing because that supports more than just his own family. And I'm not knocking handling your own family, but when you have the kind of business that he's into, those are multiple people being served by what he does. And we have to just make sure that we just don't let the nonsense, because anyone, I mean, I can, you know, I, I, I can say, yeah, I'm better than Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Just to get some reaction. Da, 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 and he ain't this, he ain't that. And I'm in the game as well too. So what does that do? You get you get a little attention for a little bit, and then guess what's going to happen? The news cycles are too fast nowadays, right? It's like soon as something else hits TikTok or Instagram, your little story goes away, and then you're going to have to figure out another way of doing the same thing. And then you get into this cycle. So now you got to trash people. And so what happens is podcasters who are in the business of trashing people love to bring you on so you can trash people because they don't care about you personally. And now I'm talking to talent, and I'm talking to Aries. They don't care about you personally. They just care that you make some noise for them. And then once you leave, you're out on them streets, right? And you you go into the wrong spot. You go to some pro Ice Cube spots. You're like, oh no, this is just for television. This is for show. Well, the only group of people that I kind of I grew up on that because being born and grew up in the Philly area, that's a boxing city. So the whole pre-boxing scenario. I don't know how to say it. How do you say it? Is that Shura? Shura? Oops. I hope I'm not messing up your name, but hey, I see you. Yeah, what's up? We just I'm just doing this, man. Just trying to make sure people take from this Ice Cube and Aries Spears thing the right way, right? So if you got any questions, I see you there. Hit me up. And from India, wow! Can you tell me what time is it in India? Because it is 6:49 p.m. on the West Coast. What time do you have? is it like morning time in India? One of California. I'm in California, near Los Angeles. Wow, it is 7:28 a.m. in India. Wow, all right, welcome. You I guess you're having breakfast food, and I'm about to have dinner. So yeah, just doing my thing, just trying to share with our audience. This we had this big little thing happening with Ice Cube and Aries Spears, and I'm just kind of giving my perspective of what we can do with this, and give advice. I don't have to give any advice to Love LA. Yeah, yeah. Have you been? Have you been to LA? Hopefully that's oh, I see. You say you're in my dream city. Yeah, you gotta come through. You gotta come through. Don't listen to everything that you hear. Right? See for yourself. You can always glasses half empty or half full. For me, I'm an Aquarian. I was born on Valentine's Day, so I'm an optimist to the end. I'm not going to make a final judgment about anything. Um, Oh yeah, money. Yeah. Okay. Well, in India, maybe you got to do something over there to, to put a couple of dollars away. Maybe you need be a star in India. In India, that's Bollywood. Maybe you got to do the Bollywood thing, and then that's your shot to come to Hollywood. So I'm always looking for I'll take the high road, optimist to the end. So welcome and glad you come hang out. So what I was saying, is with these two people, and again, my whole thing is to give advice, and what we can do as fans of both of them is number one, I would encourage Aries Spears to do his impersonations, to do more of them. Because he's talented in that world. And anyone and Aries, if the next time you're pitching a show or something that you're out there doing, pitch sketch comedy. Create sketches on your stage when you're performing. Especially if you're back there. Um, Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, not better than Hollywood. So that that's why when you put your dollars together, you come out here and hang out, right? So we're trying to get our game back together out here in Hollywood. The governor's putting more money to attract film business back to the state. We had a little bit moment, and I think we're slowly. And COVID really messed Hollywood up. With TV and the film game. COVID really, the way television worked and TV worked in the past was, I would pitch an idea this year, possibly for it to happen next year, right? So COVID, in my mind, just it pushed everything back 2 years. So now there's a 3-year kind of place where a lot of ideas to do new shows was coming from. And how do you survive just paying your bills for 3 years, right? So, and then streaming came, and we're doing stuff a little different, and so we've got to rebound. Um, about I don't know Snoop Dogg personally. The last time I was around Snoop Dogg was when I was working at BET, and he came through our Burbank facility. But once I left BET, I kind of left the music game alone, and so I don't really go to the award show and stuff. Kind of made a transition into film and TV, but I remember even on my sketch comedy show, I had DJ Quick, the East Siders, Mac 10. I love hip hop. I love rappers, and I think they get a bad of rap in general, because every event that we had rappers at BET, we never had no issues, 0 issues, right? Because we respected them, they respected us. They came for their craft, they did their thing. And so for me, that was that was a great thing. So I think we should continue because those are our stars, and we need to continue. Snoop ran into some stuff with and Nelly with the president, and we just have to be careful there, right? Because we're all living with an environment that's not necessarily positive for us. But when you have more people to think about than just yourself and your immediate family, oh, and there's people out there in the administration that you don't necessarily care for. You still need to know how to do that move. You still need to know how to navigate through, because in America, for those who are not from here, I mean, every 4 years there's a reset. There's a little mini reset every 2 years. The bigger reset every 4 years, and the president, you only got 8 of them. 8 years to do your thing, and then you gone. So it's just like Obama. Obama now, he did his 8, he's out of there. So business has to continue to move on, and you got to do things. And for Nelly and Snoop, I mean, I would just be, I wouldn't be in attack mode when you're getting critiqued. I would just kind of, to me, because that's how I think as a producer. I just kind of, you kind of think of you still got to move things through, and you keep doing the things that you do. I mean, Snoop, for me, when he is supporting, and football is my thing, right? So he has a little football league. I wasn't able to play football when I was little because my mom was like, "You're just too little." She wouldn't let me do it. I don't think I was able to start playing football until I was probably like 7th grade, right? My older brother was much bigger person than I was. I was always a little person. So my mom was like, "Nah, you ain't doing that little stuff," right? So, but I like what he's doing there. And we're all human, but I like, when he did his little football league, he's developing young people, for me personally, I could give him some room. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, that's nah. I'm gonna give him some room on that one, right? Because I don't know everything that's involved in there, but I see what he's doing, and he's not faking this stuff, and he's not, and he's doing it in a place that he grew up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I was able to, and I think I talked to you guys about this before. It's like, my high school in Pennsylvania doesn't exist anymore, and if I could write a check to start a high school, I would write a check to bring my high school back in my hometown. Well, why don't you do it in California? It's like, yeah, but I got a connection to Pennsylvania, and that's just my thing, right? But the fact that I'm writing a check to create a high school so that young people could go to a high school, come on now, you got to give some love for that. So I'm not as up to par on what Nelly does, but it apparently, because there's not a lot of pushback from his community that he ain't doing stuff. So, I give him a little leeway. Now, you ain't got to go Tom, and then neither one of them, in my estimation, nowhere near was doing any Tom and kind of stuff. You know what I mean? We got some folks that look like us that do that stuff. I know what that looks like, and they weren't moving that way. So I'm gonna give them that space, right? Because I know how difficult it is. Sometimes you got to deal with people you don't want to deal with, but you're looking at the end game, and sometimes you just have to bite your own tongue and and not say your own personal opinions. And the time that they talked about what Snoop was saying before, well, he was in a different place there before, and when you add more responsibilities or other people that you got to deal with, sometimes you just got to take the hits. The leaders, you lead, right? And a lot of times you lead by taking those hits. And so sometimes you got to take those hits. So that's it in the broader sense. Oh, and looking in the chat, my producing came from television. So I was a TV producer. So only time I dealt with music is when music was a part of my shows. So I wasn't at BET, and BET is a cable company, which had, to me, the dominant two things that we did really well was music and comedy. The music was primarily driven on from our East Coast facilities, and then our comedy was driven from our West Coast facilities. But inside of my shows, and like in my sketch show, I had music guests part of my shows, and they were able to perform. So I see musicians, rappers, hip hop artists from a different kind of talent place where I'm looking for them to come in and be talent for my television shows, my sketch shows, and in my future, and even in my films. Because I see them more. For a prime example of that is DJ Quick. Uh, DJ Quick should be in movies. Mac 10 should be in movies. I mean, these are guys that came to my show cold and just have a natural ability to move through. So any of you casting agents out there, those two guys are talented, and regardless of what you think about them, whatever they have to project out into the streets, their professionalism on set, to par. To par. Excellent, on time, enjoyed what they were doing. Well, no, my show, my sketch comedy show, it's no longer it ended in 2002 at BET. So I'm going to be looking to bring my sketch comedy show back. So it was while I was at BET. And I was at BET from 1990. I might have been there before you were even born. From 1990 to 2002, that was my BET experience. And inside of those last 2 years is when I did my sketch show. So I'm working on bringing that sketch show back, talking to people as we speak. So that's where I am with that. But I thank you for coming. I see you don't have a lot of power, but I appreciate you coming in. I typically do my shows on Wednesdays, depending on my schedule, at these times. So Wednesday at 6:00, LA time. I typically do this, and I do I don't know what's the time. Where's my clock? I do about an hour and a half. But yeah, typically I try to do Wednesdays with different subjects. So glad you're here. Don't use up all your power, so just in case you got to plug it in. But come back, and I'll continue to respond. I love you're in there in the chat, and just like everyone else. You can also hit me up on my channel, The Way We Do It TV. That's my YouTube channel. And I respond there as well. And I put up a lot of my old stuff, my clips, my old episodes. I have poetry. Like part of my show, we did poets, kind of like street poets. I've done sit-down interviews with comedians. There's a lot of different stuff. I'm very kind of like in that lane of comics and urban stuff, and to me is no, the only thing, and don't get mad at me, but I can't put up the music on my channel because there's music rights that I don't own. So that's the one part. So I can't put up their music when they shot their music for me on my shows. I can't put that up. And I'm kind of glad I don't, because I really want you to see these music artists. I mean, I have MC Lights up there. It's Slum Village, a couple of Lil Flip, Pastor Troy. Remember, I only had a little 2-year window to do all this stuff in. But I really want you to see their non-music talent, which that's what excites me about it, because we're not just one-trick ponies. And don't sleep. That's why I'm not sleeping on these music artists or even professional athletes who want to get into TV and film. I know a lot of producers are like, no, well, they kind of put them in their little boxes. They don't want them out of those boxes. I don't see that. Talent is talent, and if you just kind of understand and do research of the industry. I remember Elvis Presley was doing movies back in the day. You know what I mean? So it's like, don't tell me a music artist can't make transitions. I mean, think of LL Cool J and Latifah. making those transitions. I mean, and that's just two. You know, Snoop is taking that role. Ice Cube, 100. You know, so let's not sit on that, because they're very talented, and so we should continue on that. So just wanted to I don't like to stay on here too long, so just wanted to kind of wrap it up. But I wanted this to be a scenario of two people at two different places, and what I see is Aries Spears kind of reaching out, in his way, you know, for and creating attention around something. But I see his behavior not as an attack on Ice Cube. I see this behavior as frustration on where he is, because Ice Cube is just moving. He's doing his thing, right? So it's like, no, that's not it. So, but I just don't like to critique people without giving them something, because this is the producer in me coming out, right? It's like, so I did my little research on Aries, and I was like, you know what? He's very few people could do those impersonations. And Aries, if you're watching, if you hear about it, I think you should just develop go back to because everything's about timing, is to put together your package of impersonations and be able to say them in a way that, bring them on the stage with you, and then say them in a way that these television shows will book you because of your impersonations, and you don't have to trash anybody to do that, and you're good at that. And then the other thing that I saw is just your bad TV work, right? That's a world. Now, there's just not a lot of sketch comedy shows out there. Trust me, I feel you, right? Because it's been since 2002, and I'm trying to get mine back on. I feel you. However, that doesn't mean we stop. Everything's about timing. There's a lot of junk on television now. These Gen Zs are getting bored of all this recycled stuff, and maybe it's that time, right? Because In Living Color came out of nowhere, and I'm gonna age myself. I mean, my first run in with sketch comedy was a Southern sketch comedy show called Hee Haw. And Hee Haw didn't have no one that looked like me on Hee Haw. But Hee Haw was hilarious. And it might be up on YouTube. Folks, check out Hee Haw. Heehaw. Hee Haw. They did this little thing where the talent pops up in the cornfields. My little brain was like, man, this is crazy. And I was like, that's the kind of entertainment I want to be able to. I want to be able just to make you have a good time and come out of nowhere. I'm not trying to recycle other people's stuff. I'm trying to tweak what's out there, but come up with fresh ideas. My horror movies the same way. It's an original script. I'm just all about that original stuff. I just don't like just recycling this stuff, this boring stuff. There's some movies that just came out and they recycled it from before, and they thought they could bring the original cast back, and y'all weren't checking for it because it's corny, right? It's lazy work, because everybody just wants to be like, oh, okay, we got something on our shelf, take it off our shelf, put some people on. They just think it's a formula, like it's just like you can make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and every day, everybody just wants a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Nah, sometimes you got to switch it up. And that's the beauty of being an artist, right? Because for us, we get these ideas from the ancestors, from the universe, or forever. They're quirky, and we just put it out there, and people are like, damn, that was hilarious. Or, oh my God, that was crazy. Crazy, hilarious doesn't come from standard recycling other people's stuff. I respect the people that went before me. I learned from them. I want to do my own thing. I want to put my own twist on it. I don't want to do Frankenstein. He's been done. But what I do want to do is a monster. See the difference? I'm not going to bring Frankenstein back, but Frankenstein is a monster. So I'm going to create another monster. That's how I give homage to the originators of stuff, right? They bring in certain things. I'm not going to do Scary Movie because it's been done. I got to think, okay, well, what else can I do? Oh, here's something different. Here's another spin, not just recycling what's already there. Things hit for the reason that they hit. I'm a big Star Trek person, and I'm a big Planet of the Apes person. Oh, y'all get me. Oh, boy, I'm going to get in trouble now. But I'm a big original 1971 Kirk and Spock Star Trek. Folks, I think you can still see it on YouTube somewhere. The original stuff. And it'll say, I think I was watching one, I don't know, it was Pluto TV, somebody. They had the original Star Treks. Star Trek, the original ones. I go back to that and triggers my mind. Planet of the Apes. I think I said this in a show before that I still have my Planet of the Apes trash can at my mama's house. I have one of those moms that don't throw anything out. In my room back in Pennsylvania, I have a Planet of the Apes trash can. The original Planet of the Apes, when they were upright and they were wearing clothes and they were very human-like. That's the Planet of the Apes. I don't like them now. They ain't got no clothes on, running around in the forest and all that stuff. No, I am not checking that at all. I like what just fascinated me is when they was as close as human, they were dressing like humans. You know, they had a little lean on them, but they was like human-ish, but they were separate. That was genius to me. And then they I guess these are prequels or whatever. They're going back to them not wearing clothes and just running around just like chimps, as opposed to like these kind of almost human-like chimps. That was ingenious for me. But I'm an artist. I was like, yes. And I give honor and homage to those creators. I respect them. Just like on BET, the creator of Comic View, Curtis Gadsden, he created Comic View, right? So he showed me how to do these kinds of things. He was the creator of it. So I'm, as a showrunner for his show, it's a homage. I got to respect the creator of it. That is what it is. So I want to be my own creator of things, and I respect people who've created things. And I just think that adding to the pot and just coming up with new stuff, fresh ideas for you Gen Zers, as opposed to recycle stuff, you're catching them. You're catching the industry now because you're not showing up. And now the industry is scrambling. And it's real simple. You got to open up your area of looking at things. When you had this kind of closed society that you would only get things from these production companies and these producers, you gotta open up to get new ideas, because your fan base, your customer base is not responding, because it's all recycled. Everybody's just recycling the same stuff. Oh, let me take this show from 1960s, just bring it back. Or to me, a real challenge is when you take a film, an iconic film, and turn it into a television series. That's tricky, right? That's tricky. I remember watching Boomerang, the television series, and Boomerang was my iconic film. And I'm really get in trouble right now, but just to not even trouble. I'm just gonna show you where my head is. The original Sparkle is the original Sparkle. Don't mess with Cooley High. Just leave. That's my thing. It's like you can do new versions of Cooley High, which they did. Based on a different kind of story, but the one that they did up in the Bay Area. You can do different things, based on high school life. But you just gotta be careful when you. And again, I think my perfect scenario is Frankenstein. Yeah, okay. Let's create some new monsters. Let's add to the plate of monsters as opposed to just recycling the same ones that are there. All right, so you know me, I try to stay around an hour. And again, I just wanted to wrap this one up to say that this is not a versus Ice Cube versus Aries Spears. This is an Ice Cube and Aries Spears, and I just wanted to go in detail as to why I think this is an and as you can kind of see in the title, you know, the body of work. And just for any of you, any folks in the future, when you're thinking about going after someone who has an extreme body of work, it's just not going to work. It's going to fall flat because that's not it. You know, you really need to find someone close to who you are. If at all, you have to have a beef. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a beef. I'm not getting into the film and television world to attack or go after someone else, you know. So people that got me laughing and you know and doing their thing, you know, I grew up on Spike Lee. You know, I support all of his movies. I don't like them all the same, but I support him because he opened up a place for me. Love or not like Tyler Perry, man. Me personally, I remember being in the movie theater, barely able to breathe, cracking up on his Medea character. I'm not lying to you. That's just, man, I knew I had to go back because I was laughing so much that my head went down and I missed stuff on the screen. Now, does that mean like I do everything him? No, but there's a couple little pieces in those little lanes that I enjoy. Now, being in that world, I want to add more Tyler Perry's to the mix. And when I just use the word Tyler Perry, I'm not even using that gender, men and women. We just need to add more people to the mix. Tyler Perry has a POV. Spike Lee has a POV, point of view. Andre Barnwell has a POV, point of view. We can have multiple people in there servicing multiple kind of ideas, right? And expand from there. It's just that when we put too much pressure on one individual, I think that's unfair because they have a particular style, and we just need to add to the style. So we have just as much responsibility to keep these things moving, and by how you view things and how you respond to things online, lets the podcasters know this is a lane that we want to do. Because remember, if they're creating clickbait and you clicking, that's how that works, right? Is if they keep telling you stop eating a lot of candy because it gives you cavities and you keep buying the candy, then apparently you want to buy the candy and go to the dentist, right? So we have to police ourselves, give people opportunities, and as you kind of see things and different perspectives, you know, my perspective, I'm not going to come on here and click hard. I'm not going to be trashing people. What I do is I tend to look at what happened and then always take, like, you know, the approach of, okay, well, how can we move from this? I don't want to lose either one of these people. I don't want to lose an Ice Cube. I don't want to lose an Aries Spears, because in this country, they looking like me and they got on television. That's a challenge in itself. Now they're at different places. You know, I don't like just throwing people out, right? Unless you just can't totally do things. But in the entertainment world, it's normally not that. It's normally there's some expectations or some frustrations of where your career is, and then you tend to lash out. That artists, we just tend to do that. It's just there's something about creativity that, you know, and maybe it's that frustration because you could see something and then you project it into your career and it's not moving like you want it to move, and you look to your left, you look to your right, people are passing you by, and, you know, Father Time starts clicking in. You start looking at yourself every day. I mean, I you know, I'm fully gray down here, right? I remember the days when I wasn't. You know what I mean? So you're constantly reminded, okay, every day you got to kick in, but sometimes you need people outside that have no connection to you and are going to give you tough love, right? But hopefully, from what you're hearing from me, it's like I'm not taking anyone down. I'm just kind of looking at the facts as I see them, applauding what I would say from Ice Cube's standpoint, applauding how he handled this, and just to let the rest of the world know what he has, the body of work that he's been able to put together, and you got to respect that. You just got to respect that. And then for someone who doesn't necessarily have that, is there some ideas that we can have to put them back on track or give them suggestions to move forward? Because we all would love to get someone to come into our world and give us good suggestions, even when we mess up, right? Now, our parents do that a lot to us. We act a fool. They tend to not kick us out, just having a bad day. And then they swing back around and say, you got 2 weeks punishment because of this. Now, you're still getting your 2 weeks punishment, but I don't hate you. But you bring your ass in at 12 o'clock, like I said the last time, right? And you're like, and you get through it. And then the next time you at an event, you at your game, and then your parents are sitting in the stands cheering for you behind, right? You're like, ooh, and then you see them up there. This is crazy. And I'm going to end with this. When I played high school football, and I played defensive back, I could actually distinguish my mom's voice in the crowd. All the people at the game. And any of you play games, I think you know what I'm talking about. I could hear her voice and all those people making noise. And that could be a week that my mom got on my nerves or not, but she was in the stands. You see what I'm saying? So it's that consistency. So we have to do that with our talent. Voice our opinion. And we think they're steering them a little too wrong, but when they do their event, we show up. Right? It's like, because then they'll hear that. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe I should do it a different way. But we got you, but we got to give a stern little conversation with you because we love you. So you're acting a fool, and that's not how you should be moving. We shouldn't be attacking each other. We can have critique about each other, and a lot of that critique is fair. Like in this case, I think what I said for Aries is fair, that this isn't, you have a responsibility as talent to understand that what comes out your mouth, people are going to take and run with it. You're just not a person. You're just not a regular person anymore on the side, because people are going to look at that opinion. And I'm not saying that you can't have that opinion to you personally, but you have a responsibility when you put that opinion out there, right? Because people are going to run with it. And in this case, it's going to come back on you because this ain't no match for that kind of an opinion. It's just not. And even if you still don't like his music, that's fine, but you ain't got to say it. Well, why is that got to come out? You're talent. You're in the media. No, you don't need to do that. What you need to focus in on is you do have some good skills, and other people, I've seen them come at you and they attack you. They attack you for all kind of stuff, right? I'm not attacking you. I'm looking at what I see that you have done, and it's just from a producer looking at you. If I were to bring you on, I'm like, those impersonations, not a lot of people on the planet can pull that off. That has value. You make yourself one of the top impersonators in the game, that has value. And you got timing because you did a sketch comedy show. So for me personally, now your stand-up, you do your stand-up thing, that's a whole different way of making money. I'm not in the business of stand-up non-television. So if I do anything that has stand-up, it's a television show, right? So it's in the television world. So I see those two things for you to excel at. Put your energies and your frustrations, focusing on that. So every time that you go out to be a guest on someone's show, bring those impersonations out. Man, I'm telling you, people are going to eat it up, but they're not going to have time for you to talk or even give you room to talk about something, opinions about people in the game. And you don't need to be there anyway, right? You're a stand-up comedian. If you're going to do it in your comedy set, then you do it in your comedy set, but you don't do it as a person, as a citizen sitting on a chair. Nah, you don't do that. Do your impersonations and create a sketch environment for yourself. Even if you got to do it on your own stage, bring up some people, throw a chair and a prop up, and say, you know what? Last time you remember me, I was doing Mad TV. Here's my new version of Mad TV. Pull it off. My man, Ice Cube, you just keep doing what you're doing, man. That's why I put up that description the way I did. Just keep doing what you're doing. I applaud that you reacted. You know, you had to nip it a little bit. He's like, hey man, shut that down. But you got way too much to lose to turn this into something that is not even in the beginning at. It's just I look at it as just like, you know, I remember on my YouTube channel, one of my rap artists, he was at 100%, and then someone just put a not like. And I knew they did because the skit was hilarious. And they just said they put that not like just because it was at 100%. Right. So you're going to get that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, that's terrible. I don't even thinking about myself. I was like, that sketch. And I can tell you which one it was. It was a Little Darryl sketch. Little Darryl, played by Ricky Smiley. Little Darryl's an incredible character Ricky Smiley pulled off. But he was interviewing a blind pimp. Man, if I know this, if you get a chance to go to my site, you know it's funny when I'm still laughing at it years later. When he interviewed a blind pimp. That's hilarious. And then when one person put a thumbs down, I was like, oh, yeah, I just hating. But that's okay. I mean, that's just part of what's going on. So again, thank you guys for showing up. My friend in India, feel free to come back next week. And again, hit me with some other, I know your phone died on you. So come back with some other questions and hopefully I can answer some of the things because I'm in here. I'm in California. So, and any of you, any questions beyond what I'm talking about? I'm sitting here. You know, remember, I was a professor for 26 years, so I'm a teach mode type person, and I'm a producer, so I'm kind of looking at the backstories of everything. And if I can give advice or something, you know, I'm not gonna give hateful advice, but even in a scenario like this with these two gentlemen, I'm always gonna try to find number one where the criticism is right and where a critique and say, hey, that was wrong. But I don't like to leave it like that. I don't just like to tell somebody something is wrong without saying, how do you the next time do it better? So I see Aries Spears as doing this better. And how you do it better is just don't focus on this kind of stuff. And this is just an outsider looking at you. Focus on those impersonations and focus on recreating. And this is a producer now talking to you. Recreate those however you can do it on your next stand-up show. Recreate some sketches, like live theater sketches. Look at my first season of The Way We Do It when Ricky Smiley was hosting it. That was more like live theater. Go up on my site, just look at them. I put all 36 episodes were up there. That first season's there, and it was done with minimal props because we couldn't afford. We didn't have a lot of money, and we made it feel like you were in a theater with some props. Do that. Come up with a character or characters, and then do that on your stage. Because I know you do stage work back there in New York. You're sitting right there in Broadway. Is sitting there off Broadway, on Broadway, sitting right there. Do that. And I'm telling you, those casting producers, they're gonna see something from you, and then see you don't have time for all this other stuff, right? Do that because that's where you are, you know, and hopefully that might help. All right, folks. So until I see you guys again, all right, everyone, be well.